The anatomy of a coin can get maddening. Obverse, reverse, field, relief. What in the world is an obverse anyway? If these terms and more confuse you, stay tuned. I promise you by the end, you're going to understand this. But you're going to want to watch this entire video. If you're new to the hobby of collecting coins, you've probably heard many of these confusing terms. In fact, you've probably even thought they meant one thing and meant something totally different. Now, this isn't going to turn into a lesson in grammar, but there are some things that I want to make sure I describe to you. One, it doesn't have to be confusing. If you watch this video and what it is, it's going to help you, especially when you're looking at buying or selling coins, identifying varieties, or error coins. So let's go ahead and start with some basic terms that everybody's familiar with. So we have face, usually meant to talk about the front of the coin, but it's not necessarily talking about the portrait of the coin. We also use face for something else, which is the face value. So when people talk about face of the coin, they could be talking about the value of the coin. So just be aware of those. Obviously, heads or tails, if you're talking about sports, you've heard these two before. Heads is talking about the obverse of the coin or the front of the coin or the main component of the coin. Now, this can get confusing depending upon the type of coin and the locale of the coin is from. We're going to get into this in just a little bit. Tails is a little bit more familiar. It's easier. But again, tails is one of those things where they could actually be talking about the tail of a coin. They could actually be talking about the tail. So here is a great picture, and I'm going to be going through this. You're going to see this a lot as we move through this discussion. You'll see this a lot, but each time it's going to talk about one additional item down below, and we're going to have a little bit of discussion, especially when we start talking about what each of these means. So I'm going to focus on a number of terms, and these are some of the proper terms that I'm going to be going over with you. In fact, there's a whole other set of terms, and these 12 terms will be the ones that you're going to most commonly use or most commonly hear. Now, I'm going to be adding some additional terms along in the discussion. For instance, if we're talking about the obverse, then I mentioned DDO. I'm going to explain to you that it means double die obverse. So there's going to be a lot of these things. So it wouldn't hurt if you have a pen and a piece of paper handy to go ahead and jot some of these down. You can always save this video. If you're subscribed to this channel, you can always save this video and use it in your playlist, or you can go ahead and subscribe now. So without further ado, let's go ahead and go to the presentation. Now, when we're talking about obverse, again, this is a term used primarily by collectors and investors. Now, the important thing about the obverse is understanding its relationship. So where did obverse come from? Well, obverse is a relational piece. Now, it means in conjunction with, and so in this case, it's in conjunction with the reverse. So the obverse is the other side of the reverse. So they utilize the technical term obverse as the front of the coin. So that's where they got the term obverse. If you're looking at DDO, that's doubled die obverse, right? DDR is double dyed reverse. They're not going to say DDF. It's not going to be double dyed front. It's not going to be double dyed heads, right? So you're not going to see DDF, DDH. So you need to understand the proper term so that you can understand what it means when you see something like DDO, DDR, okay? That's why it's important to understand the term obverse. And in retrospect, when you're talking about the reverse, this is a little bit easier to understand. Obviously, it's the back of the coin or the tails of the coin. But when you look at the reverse, you want to make sure that you understand that utilizing the word tail, especially when you're talking about errors, a great one is the pooping horse error, where there's a die break on the tail. It looks like a tail. The horse is pooping. I believe it's the Wyoming quarter. I may be wrong on that one. I'll double check and enter it. But again, so it's important you understand the proper terminologies. Now, I still can use tail when you're doing a coin flip. If you say the tail of a coin, people know what that means. But again, you're going to want to try to use the proper terminology. Now, the next one is the field of the coin. So if you follow my mouse, you'll see the little pointer here, and I'm pointing to all of the areas that have nothing on them. That is a blank part of the planchette. This is where no device, no legend, no motto, where nothing is. All of that blank space is called the field. Okay. The relief is just the opposite of the field, and that is any point that is raised above the surface. Now, this gets a little bit tricky when we're talking about the newer coins, because when you're talking about the newer coins, there's also this thing called inclusion. And so that is where the coin is pressed into, or the image is pressed into the planchette, not the planchette is pushed and the material gets raised off of the surface of the coin. Now, this one goes without saying, but there is some information here within the date. Now, the date can happen either on the reverse or the obverse, doesn't really matter. However, when you're talking about US coins or British coins, European coins, Australian coins, the date usually is the date the coin was minted. That means that if they created this coin in 1876, that's the year that's going to be on there. Now, there are some instances where you have foreign coinage that the date that's on the coin is not necessarily the year minted. It could be a historical piece or something of that nature. So it's important to understand the coin itself when looking at that. You're not going to see too many instances of years on a coin that are not related to the year it was minted. Now, one exception that I can talk about is in bullion coin, where you see a date range. When you're looking at something like the 2021 Morgan dollar, where you have the 2021. Now there's a bullion coin that's the Morgan as well that lists 1921 to 2021. It's the 100-year coin. So in that case, it's not going to be the year minted. The one on the right is going to be the year minted, but the one on the left would be the original minting of the coin. These are exceptions to the rule. They're not the rule itself. And so again, just be cognizant of dates when you see them. If you see a date that says 1855 and it looks like a newly minted coin, you probably want to do some research on that coin to find out if it's actually that old. You may have found a gem, but most likely what it is it's either a reproduction or something where the coin is, it may not be an actual coin, it may be something like a bullion piece. Now, when we talk about the portrait, this one pretty much goes without saying. A portrait is an image of a person. In this case, you have Lady Liberty, but you all know like George Washington, Abe Lincoln, King Charles, Queen Elizabeth II. You may even see things on there that are like the kookaburra. You may see things on there like animals. So the portrait is usually a person, but it could be an animal. It could be some sort of, you could have an animal on one side and a ship on the other, for instance. And so in this case, the portrait would be of the bird, and then you would have the device. Now, you could have a coin that doesn't even have a portrait. They could just have devices, which is the high relief or the relief on the back of the coin. So in this case, if you look in the upper right-hand corner, you're going to see the device is the bird. If you have a portrait, this is what it's referring to. Now, the rim is different than the edge, and I'm going to give you a little bit clearer explanation of what that is. So the front and the back, or the obverse and the reverse, have a rim. Now, the rim is designed to protect the coin from additional wear, especially when handling the coin or when setting the coin down on a surface. But that rim is also used to be able to stack the coin. That's where we get the term stacking, right? When you're talking about coins of bullion and you see people stack silver or gold coins, that's the rim. That's what the purpose of that is for. But you also have the edge, and the edge is the actual side of the coin. And the edge is the way you want to hold the coin. You never want to touch the coin or hold the coin by the rim, You want to hold the coin by the edge. And so let me show you exactly what I'm talking about. So when you're looking at this coin, it's important to make the distinction, mainly because when you're talking, if you're talking to somebody, they may yell at you if you say you're holding it by the rim. That's not good because you're putting oils and dirt, maybe even fingerprints on the field of the coin, or maybe the portrait of a coin or the relief of the coin. And so you want to make sure that you're holding it by the edge. Now, if you have gloves on, gloves are awesome. They're great, but you need to change them frequently because the more you touch coin are dirty, especially if you're doing box hunts or things of that nature, you're going to want to change your gloves frequently because dirt and things build up. If you happen to touch your face accidentally, not thinking about it, there's oils on the skin. They get on the glove, they transfer to the coin. So if you're going to be wearing gloves, change them frequently, okay? If not, wash your hands thoroughly. Don't use any kind of lotion. Don't use any kind of gels. Don't use any kind of things of that nature because they leave residue and that residue can transfer to the coin. So again, your best bet is to make sure you always hold the coin from the edge. Now, the next one is the legend. Now, the legend is a part of a coin in most cases that describes where the coin came from. Now, in this particular case, the legend is going to be the United States of America. It could be the Royal Australian Mint. It could be the Nadbury Mint, if it's from there. It could be whatever mint or whatever location or whatever country it's coming from. That's going to be the legend. Now, don't get that confused with the motto. Okay, so the motto is some sort of historical statement, inspirational saying or something of that nature. And on this particular coin, you'll see that the motto is E pluribus unum is on the obverse of the coin in this case, and is located above Lady Liberty. Now, when we're talking about the mint mark is a small mark that is a single or a double letter. There are coins like New Mexico that'll have like OM, which stands for Mexico City. So it's important to understand, your local coinage and where it comes from. But in this case, U.S. coins primarily, you're going to see PDSOWNCC. So the P is obviously Philadelphia. Now, with Philadelphia, there is the capability, with Philadelphia, there is also the opportunity for there not to be a mint mark. No mint mark doesn't necessarily mean that it's from Philadelphia, however. There are some error coins, for instance, the proof San Francisco, Rosie Dime, no S. That coin having a no S mint mark would look like a Philadelphia. However, because it's a proof coin and we know that they were minted in San Francisco, that becomes a highly collectible and highly valued coin. So just because it doesn't have a mint mark doesn't necessarily mean it's from Philadelphia, but the primary rule is no mint mark, Philadelphia. There's also D, which stands for Denver, S, which stands for San Francisco, O, which stands for New Orleans, W, which stands for West Point, and CC, which stands for Carson City. Now, the location of the coin can help in value, especially if you have an older coin. So in this case, let's say that we had an 1882 that had a Carson City mint mark. That would be a very valuable coin. However, if it was in 1882 and it was from New Orleans, it would also be a nice coin, but it may not hold the same value as one you would find from Carson City. So again, mint marks are important. Make sure you understand your mint marks and where they come from. You don't want to inadvertently sell a coin that has a CC on it for the price of a Philadelphia. So be aware of what you have. Finally, in this particular item is going to be the designer initials. Now, the designer initials are something that you're not going to find on every coin. The 1910 to the 1917 Lincoln cent, they did not put the designer's initials there. They didn't have the designer initial VDB on the jacket of Lincoln until 1918. So if you don't see the designer initial, it doesn't necessarily mean it's an error coin. It could just be the design of that coin and the years in which that coin did or did not have designer initials. One other thing about the designer initials, especially when we get into these incuse doubling items, for instance, the Bessie Coleman quarter, which you can see the video here. Go check that out for some great information on incuse doubling. So again, this graphic that's on the page, you can take a screenshot of it if you want to keep this handy. If you're not already subbed, again, please do so. You can do that. And then once you're subbed, you can save this video to your playlist, come back and look at it at any time. If you're not new to the hobby, but you know somebody who is, share the video with them. It'll be really important for them to really understand these 12 items and the information that goes along with them. So please feel free to share. If you like this video, please smash that thumbs up, leave a comment down below. And if there's anything that you feel is important that I didn't include, list it down below and we can talk about it. Thank you for coming by. I appreciate your patronage. Smash that thumb. And if you want to buy me a coffee, description's in the link above. Take care and have a great day.